Welcome to another video from Creativo Solutions. You're watching the Accounting for Non-Accountants video series. Please post comments and questions below. Tell me what videos you want me to provide you with so you can better understand your accounting. Subscribe to this channel and visit the website for more content and resources to help. We are going to be discussing disclosure, and we're going to be looking specifically at adjustments. We know disclosure refers to the way information is prepared and presented to the users. So we need to decide, how is that information going to be disclosed? We need to disclose the information very carefully because it's going to affect decision making. So how long is the financial reporting year? Well, a reporting year is normally 12 months. There are instances where it can be slightly longer, but we're not going to be discussing those. We're just going to be focusing on the majority of financial years, which are 12 months in length. Do all transactions always relate to the financial year? The answer is no. We are going to have to provide for certain adjustments in order to accurately reflect the financial year's transactions. Very important, we've spoken how important the rules are. We know that understanding the accounting effects in line with the rules is key to processing adjustments correctly. So what are the rules? Well, here's a quick recap for those of you that haven't watched the video covering all the rules specifically around accounting. Remember, we're keeping it simple. It doesn't matter how complex or simple the questions are, we're always going to be using the accounting rules. And there are 6. One for an asset, the plus is on the debit. One for the liability, plus on the credit. One for income, plus on the credit. And the expense, plus on the debit. And then you've got 2 here referring to owner's equity, which is the capital, and the drawings, which are nice and simple to remember because they start with the letter C for capital and C for credit and D for drawings and D for debit. So those are the accounting rules. Make sure you know them, and then we can apply them in different scenarios. We record transactions when they arise. There has to be some sort of source document that proves a transaction exists. If a transaction exists, it'll then be recorded in the books of the entity. We know the financial statements are going to be recording the activities for the last financial year. We know the transactions that do arise can either affect the current year, or it could affect before the start or after the start of the year, depending on what the transaction is specifically. And that's what we're looking at here in terms of adjusting the financial year to better present the accounting records on a more accurate basis. The one that we're going to be looking at here is a prepaid expense. Transactions are recorded when they arise. We know that. During the financial year, what happens if we pay for an expense before it actually is incurred? We know the financial year is 12 months. That's important. We've paid for something during the year, but it extends after the year end. So if we've got 2 months that belong in the financial year as an expense because we've incurred it for that period, but then the other 10 months are outside the financial year, how are we going to adjust for this? Well, let's think about what the definition is for an expense. It's an outflow of benefit. So if I'm looking at the current financial year, which is 12 months long, do those 12 months have any expense that relate to it? Yes. 2 months relate to those 12 months, and therefore the 2 months that are inside the financial year will be recorded as an expense. The problem comes up when we're looking at the actual 10 months that are outside the financial year. Can I show more of an expense for the 12 months? No, I can't. I can only show what's in the financial year. So if only 2 months are in the financial year, I can only show 2 months worth of an expense, and the 10 months are outside because they belong to another period. Important, transactions are recorded when they occur, and we need to then understand what the actual account is that we're going to be creating. So we know the definition of a prepaid expense is an expense paid which relates to future periods. So if I'm paying something today, but I'm only going to be using in the future, what is the effect on the elements? Well, there are 6 to choose from. If we think about it carefully, we know the expense relates to a future period. So currently, it doesn't meet the definition for an expense purely because we're looking at disclosure at year end. So at the year end, we're going to provide for this adjustment. We're going to show an asset only at year end because this particular expense relates to the next financial year. In the next financial year, adjustments need to be reversed out because now it's no longer an asset, it is still an expense because we're using it in that financial year. So for the current period, when adjusting for the actual transaction, we're going to debit the prepaid expenses and we're going to credit the expense. The important bit is understanding why you're doing that. So what did we say prepaid expense is? Well, we said it's an asset. If I prepay something today, I'm going to get the benefit in the future. So that meets the definition of an asset, and therefore I'm going to increase it because I'm recording an asset now to provide for the adjustment. I'm crediting the expense. Why do I credit the expense? Well, again, we spoke about making a payment today, but you've paid too much. A portion of it is outside the financial year. So think back to our example. 2 months was actually an expense in the current year. 10 months was outside the financial year. So is the expense too high or too low? Well, the expense is definitely too high because when I captured the expense, I would have captured 12 months worth of an expense, but only 2 months belong to the financial year, and therefore I adjust only because I'm disclosing the information more accurately for my users. Remember, adjustments are only done at the end of the year to provide for changes between what we had during the year and what relates to the future. This takes us to the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel and please post your comments below. Tell me if you understand what a prepaid expense is.